What's up, wrestling fans, trading card collectors? Back again with a Wrestling with Cards live episode. And I'm not going to waste any of your time or our guest's time. We have your creator, the mastermind, the man behind the gimmick, Schway Nostalgia. Welcome.
What's good, brother? How you living today?
Doing great. Happy to get on here and talk about something that I'm always talking about, and that's like building something, building a community, building a platform, whether that's content or what you've got into. So I'm just going to kind of lay out and, well, actually, before we start talking about that, we got to do what we always do on this when we've got somebody new on the stream, and that is talk about your origin story. So where did you just, not necessarily wrestling or whatever, but like when is the first time that you actually start collecting anything in the first place?
Man, I was one of those kids where, my mom would take me to Toys R Us and just have me walking around Toys R Us treating it like a museum, because my dream was I wanted to be one of those kids on Nickelodeon who got the shopping cart. And
oh yeah, where you get to run through and just fill it up as quick as possible.
That so bad. I wanted to be that guy just running around. I would just run straight to the video game section, just throw everything N64 in there. That's what I really wanted. But what I really was collecting as a kid, I was big into X-Men action figures, Batman the Animated Series, anything like that, superhero stuff. My first dabbling with cards would probably be, I was big into sports cards as a kid, in particular baseball, big into metal, ironically. So I used to go to Bullets games as a kid, and they'd have this vendor selling basketball cards. And I would always go over there and look at all the cool metal cards. And like, I just have binders full of random stuff in my basement. I kept all my cards from kids.
They had a vendor at the games selling cards?
Yeah,
Where is that gone?
I don't know. It's funny because that arena, ironically, I found out years later, was like a lot of major wrestling events happened there. It was the U.S. Airways Arena. And apparently there was lots of big stuff that happened. And as a kid, I never really got to watch wrestling. My dad was pretty anti-wrestling. He'd always tell me it was stupid and fake and blah, 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 which to me, it's like, yeah, the Avengers are fake too. And so is Indiana Jones.
And most everything else that people enjoy.
Right. So like I was collecting, action figures, toys, cards to an extent, but I wasn't collecting cards the same way that I do now, where I'm looking for like higher value stuff. It was more so just like, I like this player. I like the design. Like I have boxes, even right now, I got a couple sealed boxes of vintage Marvel cards that were stuff I collected when I was a kid, 95 annual, Fleer, all that type of stuff, man. So.
Yeah, speaking of that, I just recently found in a bulk collection that I bought the SpiderMan live event promo card. Have you ever seen those?
No.
You remember back in the day where they would do like and they still do it to an extent, but they do the like, Ninja Turtles live on stage kind of thing, where they bring the animated people into. Okay, so something like that. And Spider-Man was live, and their autograph cards, and on the back it's signed Spidey with some like whoever was in costume that day. I thought that was really awesome. So there's a lot of cool stuff from that era of superhero cards.
Yeah, I'm gonna date myself a bit, but I never went to Spider-Man. I went to Power Rangers, the original Power Rangers at the DC Armory, and saw them live and got like the special cup. And I thought it was like the coolest thing. In hindsight, it was ridiculous, but at the time, it was like the thing to do.
Oh yeah, it's well, I mean, come on. If we're gonna talk ridiculous, like half of wrestling is ridiculous, but that's what makes it fun. And I'm with you. I would have totally picked Power Rangers over going to Spider-Man. We got a couple of comments here. Trey, thanks for stopping by.
Oh, what's good, Piazza? How you doing, brother? I can't even see the comments. Let me see. Oh, there it is. Okay.
There we go. Todd Hill, good afternoon, Jet.
What up, Todd? Yeah, dude, Trey's my guy, Piazza, one of the best dudes I've actually met off of Whatnot, and big supporter of the Schway Wrestling Network. So shout out my guy, Piazza.
Which we'll get into the network stuff in just a moment. So what was the transition for you into kind of what you're doing now for like what are you collecting now? How did you get to that point? And then we'll talk about what you're building from there.
Yeah, so it's really funny. Before the pandemic, I was big into like music and hip hop and stuff like that. So like I was a manager. I used to put together a lot of events, stuff like that. And then right before the pandemic, I kind of just, I don't know if I'd say fell out of love with it, but I was just not feeling it as much as I used to. And during the pandemic, I kind of just started buying and flipping stuff. So like I found this box of Simpsons action figures this guy was selling super cheap. And I was like, I love The Simpsons. I bought the box, started flipping the figures. And I'm like, oh, this is kind of fun. And then I just started finding more nostalgic stuff that I was into. And that's kind of how I started Schway Nostalgia, was just literally buying, selling cool vintage stuff that I found. And I ended up, getting on Twitter and meeting a lot of people via Twitter through a great group called Collectors Helping Collectors, which is a pretty cool group of guys who basically they'll go out, buy stuff for other collectors and sell it to them at cost as kind of just a way to help each other out. And I ended up meeting a couple guys in there who were like super into wrestling cards. And I was, as a kid, I was big into wrestling. When I grew up, I was a big Dudley Boys guy. I was really big into the Dudleys, The Rock and Stone Cold, obviously, but those were the things I grew up on. And I'm seeing these cards and I'm like, wow, these look pretty sweet. I'm not even too sharp to any of this. And one of the people I met via Twitter, this guy, Evan's on Tour, who's a good friend of mine.
Oh, yeah. Yep, Evan. Mm-hmm.
He ended up posting and being like, hey, I'm doing this whatnot stream, blah, blah, blah. Come hang out. And I looked and I'm like, wow, is that like in his picture? He had an Arn Anderson 101. And I was big into, because AEW ironically got me back into wrestling. I know a lot of people are going to hate me for saying that.
That's a lot of people have shared that same sentiment though. Like if you see it on social media, they're like, as soon as AEW launched, they're so sick and tired of WWE and they wanted an alternative, and that's what it's provided.
It was one of those things where my friend had showed me Okada versus Kenny a while ago on YouTube. And then the first ever Dynamite was in DC. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go out. What's the worst that's going to happen? I went, I had a great time. The energy felt somewhere between a live sporting event and a concert. I just really dig the energy. And after that, I was hooked. And I've been like, I like both products, which I know is very foreign to some people. To me, the fact that there's competition is only going to breed better product in WWE and AEW. Having real free agency, it's just better for the wrestlers. So I just started collecting wrestling cards after that, just because I saw them. AEW, I saw the first set, and I was like, okay, I kind of want to collect this just because this is their first set. I really like AEW, and then I get on Whatnot, and next thing you know, my basement's like covered in cards. And I originally got on Whatnot to sell action figures and like vintage toys. That's what I got accepted for. Because if you saw my basement, it looks like Toys R Us in '96 with how many action figures I have.
Hey, the dream has come true. Full circle. Like you wanted that Toys R Us sweepstakes run, and now you've got it in your basement.
Yeah, exactly. It's just the problem is I had to pay for this stuff.
Hey, either way, you got it. You hit the dream.
And I was on Whatnot, and at the time, there wasn't a lot of people selling wrestling cards at the time. And, I just kind of noticed as someone who liked wrestling and who was buying a lot of wrestling cards out of nowhere, I'm like, wow, there's a good opportunity here for someone if they know what they're doing. And I kind of taught myself to know what I was doing. And I just went on there, and next thing you know, I've been on Whatnot for like a year and a half. And I would definitely say it's been life-changing for me because, like, besides doing this, I'm in grad school. So I'm literally, selling cards full-time on Whatnot as my job while I'm in grad school. And
speaking of that, I'll cut you off here. We've got a question right off the bat. Miami Mark, thanks for stopping by. He's a regular in the stream. So you just answered that. You're doing this full-time as well as doing something else full-time?
Yeah, I'm doing this full-time right now. To be honest, I'm lucky enough to have the ability to, I stay with family right now, so I don't have like the overhead that totally would be there. But having said that, money I would spend on rent, I spend on more product, like I mentioned to you before stream, so it's one of those things where it's like I'm in the position to take that chance. But it's definitely been growing to a point where I could like support myself off it better and all that. My main thing right now is trying to figure out how to scale up. Given my limited resources, being able to hire someone else is not the easiest job for me, and finding other breakers and stuff like that. So it's all a learning process.
One more ZA champion in here, as always. Thanks for stopping by. If you guys are watching this live and you got questions or comments or anything we're talking about, just drop it in the chat and we'll get to it. So, what are you currently collecting, like personally? How is that? Like, because I understand because running my eBay store essentially full time at this point. You buy a lot of cool stuff. You want to keep some stuff you think you want, and then you eventually get rid of it, and then eventually you kind of focus on something. So where are you at right now with your PC?
Well, first of all, shout out my guy Ryan Box, who just said hi in the chat. Good
Let's
dude.
drop him in here. Ryan, what's up? Thank you.
What up, Ryan? Appreciate you stopping by. So, you know, in general, outside of cards, I collect AEW chase and rare figures when I find them at the right deals. I even have prototype AEW figures.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and for cards, it's funny. When I started, I was trying to complete the AEW Series 1 set as much as possible. And I'm going to be honest, it's just too much. You know what I mean? And I'm such a completist. It just, you know, it drives me nuts when I don't get stuff for my PC. So currently my main PCs, like I collect a lot of AEW stuff, but my main ones for WWE is Carmelo Hayes and Grayson Waller are my two main guys for WWE. I also lightly collect Montez. And I guess now I could say this is a WWE PC, but I've been collecting Jade Cargill pretty much since I saw her in Daly's Place at AEW.
Oh yeah.
And before I even saw her in the ring, I just saw her on the sideline cheering someone on. I was like, who the hell is out? She's going to be a star. And I knew nothing about her past just like the look. So I've definitely been like big on her. MJF is another PC of mine. I'd collect The Rock. You know, my dream is to get some of those Rock auto cards that they have. But as you know, it's just so much damn money. Hey, Ivan, how you doing, brother?
Watch the breaks. Thanks for stopping by. Got another one, Wrestling Unabridged. Enjoy all the wrestling shows. First time I've been able to see you live. Thank you for stopping by. Hey, and I know this is I've said it before. This is a weird time to be doing a stream, but I got to get on here and do it when I got to do it. You know, me and Schway, we've talked offline, and like it seems like I try to respond to him a message, and it's like 5 hours go by because I've just like I've got a 4-row box right here. I was sorting a bunch of select stuff that I got in for my store. Like I mean, it's just constantly doing stuff. So I got to do these streams when I got to do them. Schway hit me a case my very first break. Dangerous. Hey, you want to jump right?
I think that I got him the Mox. I think he's talking about the Moxley competitive advantage when we were doing an AEW break. So yeah, like it's I don't know. I will say it's interesting seeing the different platforms because, like I said, this is pretty much I'm learning and teaching myself on the fly, doing a lot of this. Like I had no intention of really. You know, originally when I got on Whatnot, I didn't even want to be a wrestling card breaker because as a collector, I was like, man, what if I hit a card I really want and I have to send it to someone, which has happened.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
It happens. You know, I hit this 1-on-1 Superfractor Bianca auto from Slam Attacks like 2 weeks ago. And man, I barely broke even on that case and sending that card out. You know, I'm happy for my guy Eason, but man, it was such a beautiful card, bro.
Yeah, and that's we got so many like touching like points we could touch on here. I don't even know where to start. I guess kind of going back, like as you started getting into selling, something I found is I have more success when I'm trying to buy, sell, and trade stuff that I can get at a price. Like I know the margins, of course. But it's not the flavor of the month stuff for me. Like I've gone after, you talked about the Simpsons figures. At the time, I'm pretty sure that the Simpsons figures weren't like the latest, greatest thing that people were chasing after. But you found a way because nostalgic stuff, you know what people are wanting, and you're able to make it work. So when you've kind of transitioned before you got into breaking, like just the flipping aspect, like how has that maybe affected you and positive or negative as opposed to going after whatever the flavor of the month is? Because I kind of stopped doing that and it's been really beneficial for me.
Yeah, it's hard because, you're talking about flavor of the month. Like I'd love to get into that Disney Lorcana stuff, even though I know nothing.
They're cool cards. Yeah.
They're cool cards. I'm a big Disney nerd. If you ever need to go to Disney World, hit me up. I've been there so many times. I could help you plan your trip very easily. But it's one of those things where like trying to chase that down, or I remember the HRO NFT DC cards they were doing. Like I was looking for those. You know, it's one of those things where I stopped chasing stuff because it became very frustrating. I basically just learned that it's a lot of trial and error, especially with action figures. Like a lot of the figures I have that I'm sitting on, when I bought them was not stuff that I thought I'd be sitting on. I thought I was like, oh man, vintage X-Men figures from the original 90s series and pristine boxes and all this stuff. Like I'm about to rake up, like I'm going to do well. And I was basing it just off stuff I liked when I was a kid that I wanted, but that doesn't always work. So like one of the reasons I got more into wrestling is like, when I would be, because I do a lot of in-person vending stuff too, and I just find opportunities around me and I'll set up. And no matter what event that I vend at, if I have something wrestling, eventually one or two people come up to me and we'll have like a 10 or 20-minute conversation about, oh man, I remember Lex Luger in WCW, or oh man, I remember, Steamboat versus Macho Man. Like they'll always come up with like those memories that they want someone to identify with them, and they'd be more likely to buy something than, let's say, like an X-Men fan, where like someone who likes Marvel, I feel like based off my experience, is way less likely to go and buy a t-shirt that's a Marvel t-shirt, or like a figure, unless they have a kid or a toy or something like that, versus wrestling fans seem a lot more like, I'm going to support, I'm going to buy a ticket, I'm going to buy a t-shirt, I'm going to buy a card. Like wrestling fans, and that might be, I've thought about this, and I wonder if it's like a lot of us, I wouldn't say we're closet, but like people got picked on for being wrestling fans.
Oh yeah. We're still to this day, like even if you run like, excuse me, even if you run in a circle of like people who collect other things, you still get knocked on for liking wrestling, even though they're, they like Game of Thrones or Walking Dead or Marvel Universe, and they're like, oh, wrestling.
Right, which to me is always interesting, but I feel like it's one of those things when I meet someone who really likes wrestling, they immediately click with me a lot sooner than someone who just likes Marvel or something else. Like, I always joke around where it's like if I meet someone and I talk to them a few minutes, I just find out one or two things they like. I can talk to them for like an hour or two. I'm pretty good at doing that type of stuff. But with wrestling, it's a lot easier. Once you find someone who really enjoys it, like they get into it. They love sharing their opinions. They love like, that's one of the things I think people underestimate about Whatnot, past it being just like an app for people to buy and sell stuff. There's so many people who go there because it's the equivalent of like a digital bar. It's digital cheers. You go into my rooms, everyone knows your name. Everyone's like, hey, Zane, how you doing? Blah, blah, blah. Hey, I saw this carrying cross. I thought of you. Yada, yada. It's just like, that's how it feels, the camaraderie and brotherhood of these people who just like in their normal lives, people make fun of them for liking wrestling, or they may not have friends who live close to them who actually enjoy wrestling. I always hear people talking about like, oh, me and my guy from high school and college, like we used to do this together. And I'm like, I never had that. Like I had a friend.
Me neither.
In elementary school, I had like, two friends who liked wrestling, and then we all went to different middle schools, and like I pretty much liked wrestling on my own. And it's just one of those things where it's like, nowadays it's okay, but back then it was one of those things. And I think that chip on the shoulder definitely makes it easier to bond with other wrestling people and kind of already have that camaraderie together. So
we have a question for you that I want to get to here before we go on to the next point. What are your thoughts that make a wrestler popular card-wise? As I've seen what I would think would be popular, but they just don't go for that much. That's opening Pandora's box here.
Right. So, well, first of all, Mark, I appreciate all the questions. So I can speak kind of, that's a very broad question. I'll do my best. Obviously, there's certain men legends who usually go pretty well. So like Stone Cold, Rock, Hogan, I would say are kind of like separated from the others. Even Triple H to me goes lower than I feel like he should. Personally, I feel like a lot, especially with men, a lot of guys are undervalued. And then you get to like Roman Reigns, and after that, Brock's very undervalued. A lot of men are undervalued. From what I've noticed on Whatnot, which I find very interesting, is like women's cards sell very well. And
that's how it's been for years too.
Yeah, and it's like women who, a lot of it's based off of like, if you look at someone like Cora Jade, I don't want to knock her ring work or anything like that, but even before she was really in the ring, her cards were selling like hotcakes on Whatnot, because a lot of people collect based off appearance and a lot of other stuff that's going on there. And for me personally, like I mentioned before, I saw Jade Cargill in an AEW event, and before I even knew who the hell she was, I was like, she's going to be a star. So for me, a lot of times when I collect, I go off, you know, how I used to do A&R stuff in music. It's like I listen to someone, I look at the look, I'm like, do they have a package? Do they have, like, is my gut telling me that they can be a star? And that's kind of how I personally collect people, because I started collecting Carmelo Hayes during the first run of Prism back when he was super cheap. And I had seen, like, you know, minimal of his actual work. I saw the look and I was like, you know what, like, this guy looks like he has the potential of being a star. He's a cheap PC right now. Like, you know, why not take the risk on someone like him? And I only started collecting Grayson because in iMac breaks, he had a triple auto with Mello. And I would buy his spot in breaks with Mello so that if the triple auto showed up, I would have a 66% chance of getting it versus, you know, Braun Breaker, which is the more expensive spot. You know, I would buy the
Makes sense.
spots. Yeah. And Grayson ended up, you know, he's great on the mic and they believe in him too. You know, I look at guys like him. I look at guys like Austin Theory, which to me, I feel like Austin Theory is very undervalued in the hobby. You know, you look at someone like him, they obviously believe in him, right? He's been in the ring with Stone Cold. He's been in the ring with The Rock. He's been in the ring with Cena. He's been in the ring with, I believe, Pat McAfee. Was he in there? Logan Paul too? Maybe.
I don't remember on that one.
I might have overstepped there, but they obviously believe in him. You know, they believe in his long-term potential. They believe that he's someone that they can trust with these bigger type acts. Like someone like him goes super cheap, and it just, you know, he's someone I end up picking up in breaks because I'm like, hey, he's cheap and he obviously has good upside. Another guy like The Miz, you know, who to me is a first ballot Hall of Famer, his stuff sells so cheap. Just a lot of these guys in general just sell so cheap, and to me, a lot of them are, like I said, first ballot Hall of Famers. Look at New Day.
Yeah,
you know, I can barely give away New Day in breaks, and to me, New Day is just like first ballot Hall of Famers. Kofi, Big E, Xavier Woods, extremely entertaining, extremely great in the ring. People love them, but it doesn't translate to card value, which is
something I want to touch on too. Here you go. You like this comment? Mello don't miss for Miami Mark, and thanks for the question, Mark. We got another question already lined up here, but one thing I want to touch on when you're talking about the value, I find it interesting. Again, you're seeing this through whatnot. I'm seeing this through my eBay store. Like I can see a lot of volume of sales, but it seems to be like pick a name, pick a wrestler, whether it's a legend, whether it's a Prism rookie card of an up and coming person. It seems like I see a lot of lower end sales. So I sell a lot more stuff, but it's like I feel like a lot of people right now are not wanting to pay some of these exorbitant prices, whether that's still undervalued or not. And to kind of circle back to the beginning of the show, you collect figures, you collect cards. So I'm wondering where this crossover is going to finally hit ahead to where the Randy Ortons, the Miz, like all these cards start selling for more because people actually want them. So they're willing to pay more. And I would like to get your opinion, kind of just bouncing off what we just talked about. What do you think the pricing discrepancy is? Why are people not? Because I've paid a ridiculous amount for Karrion Kross stuff that I probably way overpaid for because I want the cards. So why are and even with figures, like I used to have some like the WCW UK Galoobs.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I had that whole set, and the amount, I sold that for what was considered a large amount at the time.
Right.
And I had that Harley race chase and that elite that everybody wanted for the longest time. I had that and I sold it. But I've actually sold cards that you wouldn't think are as valuable for more than figures. I say all that to say, what do you think is going to be the stepping point for people to actually start paying more for these cards? Because right now, I don't know what you've seen. Lots of sales, lots of interest, but just on the lower end, like some of the higher end stuff or some of the mid to higher end stuff of legends we spoke of, Miz, Randy Orton, Austin Theory, like people are just not willing to open the wallet. So what do you have to say on that? What's your take?
I was gonna curse for a second and I stopped myself. I was basically, from what I've seen, is that a lot of these guys aren't, and this is going to sound really bad, but I think a lot of these guys aren't fully going to be appreciated until either they're in the Hall of Fame or they're dead. As messed up as that sounds, but it's just from what I've seen on whatnot, man. Miz stuff goes like extremely cheap. From what I've seen, guys like Theory go pretty cheap. Having said that, certain like when you're talking about certain bigger cards. Like, for example, I have the Bret Hart Gold Bar 101 from Impeccable.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a card where it's like, I've been getting lowballed about it for a
Yeah,
while. And
I
it's
believe it.
and it's something that like I'm not pressed to sell. For me, I'm like, in my eyes, like you could make an argument. I know I don't want to get involved with all the random wrestling Twitter beef, but I was gonna say you could make an argument that it's the best Bret card that's available. I'm not saying that's right. I'm just saying there's an argument.
No, yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah. So I say, I always say this jokingly, but like the movie Any Given Sunday, Any Given Whatnot, you never know what you could find or what you might sell. There's certain cards that I've sold where people, when I told people what I wanted, they were like, "Oh, that's crazy." And I'm like, "Well, here's the thing. Like, I don't got to sell this card. I'm totally happy to just keep it." Like certain people, like I had the Austin Theory Select 101 auto that I pulled for someone and they didn't want it. They traded it to me and someone else wanted it. And I told them, I'm like, "Look, this is what I want." And they're like, "That's high." And I'm like, "Okay, that's cool. Well, I don't have to sell the card. There's only one of these. I believe in Austin Theory enough to think long term he's a good hold, so I'm not pressed." Or like I had found through a random Discord, actually, the EO Sky Black 101 ringside. And someone had it up there like pretty cheap. And I bought it and someone else wanted it. And I said the same thing. I'm like, "Look, man, if you want the card, this is what I want. If not, I believe in EO. She's great in the ring." This was way before she became champion. I was like, "I believe in her in the ring. I believe in her skills. I think she has what it takes. I've seen her matches against Penta. Like, I know she can kick like dude's ass. So I think she has good upside. It's just you never know. If you find the right seller, you can sell, or excuse me, the right buyer, you can sell anything. But a lot of people, I think, get very hung up on like, I want this price now, or they'll sell stuff quicker for less just because they want to dump it. And it ends up, you see a lot of guys, especially with Panini, who aren't really wrestling guys, buy the card, like buy a box and then throw everything on eBay and not really care about comps and just completely kill the product immediately in terms of like resale value. Looking at Prism and Select, I remember I pulled like a Bret Hart auto and I was like, "Okay, I should be able to do all right on this." And it was like the first day it came out and someone had already dropped it for like $30. And I was like, "And this card's dead." You know what I mean? Like, so at a certain point, you're like, "I guess I'm going to use this for something else," because getting comp for it after eBay fees, it's not even really worth it to me for selling it for $20 personally.
Yeah, depending on your margins. Like there's some stuff where I have done with that. Like, if I'm into a card for $1 and because I just happen to get it in bulk or something, and then somebody, let's say the last comp was like 40, but somebody offers me 20, I'll probably take it because that's, I just not at 20 times my money essentially.
I mean, if you're not into the card that deep, yeah, I'd understand that. I know personally, like there was a while ago I got into it with another seller because I was literally on a Whatnot stream selling premium Prism singles from the premium set last year when they went on sale. I was like the first person on Whatnot to have those. And I was selling some of the singles. And as I was selling it, this guy on eBay like dropped, like literally killed the comps on the whole product. Like dropped the comps on everything. So I had this guy who's going to buy the Carmella for $20. And he's like, "Oh, well, on eBay, someone just posted it for 10. And I knew the guy, and I'm just like, bro, like, look, I don't know. I try to be conscious with other people's comps especially on eBay, when I post stuff up. Like I try, I'll put or best offer and I'll take lower off, but
Same.
I try not to like kill the comps for other people if I can help it.
Do you think that instance specifically? Do you think that was somebody just trying to get some traffic and was willing to take a loss, or what?
Yeah, I think I talked to him. I think the thing is that which he made a good point, is just like, "Hey, I don't want to get stuck holding these cards. I want to make sure I sell them and blah, blah, blah." And I get that. I just, my whole thing was like, "Hey, you could have dropped your comps a little bit and did an OBO. There's no reason to drop the comps like 40% on some of these guys or 50%, like."
Yeah, when I'm listing something, no matter what it is, I don't care if it's a 1990 classic base card or a 1 of 1, I'll go in and like if I can find a similar listed or sold comp, I'll put it right at that. Like,
I'm not mad. Yeah, don't be mad. Like, I'm not mad they're taking less. I'm just saying I try to be conscious of other people's pricing so that I don't inadvertently like undercut competition.
Something else that kind of came to mind as we were talking. We got some questions in the chat too. We will get to those. We're not on any time frame right now, really. So
Just
we will
chat.
get to all the questions and comments in the chat. But when something comes up, I want to mention it. So we're talking about people willing to open their wallets to pay high prices for cards and maybe not lowballing. At the same time, I've also seen let's just say social media, because you could put content creators or people with bigger platforms or whatever you want in this.
Yeah.
It seems like people talk about these cards, and you could say Wrestling All Stars, you could say WCW autographs, like, pick Prism 1-of-1s, like whatever it is, you could pick your poison on this.
Yep.
And it seems like they drive this narrative that these are cards to have, these are going to go up in value, or these are going to maintain value. This is like the best set of all time, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to some of these cards that people like hype up, they happen to fall into my hands based on bulk lot collections or whatever.
Right.
And when I go to try to sell them, they don't sell. So what do you think the angle is on that one?
Okay, so I would say that a lot of people especially on the Twitter sphere, are, talking about what exactly. Basically, they're trying to hype up the value of their cards, is how it comes up to me. I love the wrestling community. A lot of the people I've met are great people. I consider friends past just like collecting cards. But I got to be honest, man. Some of these frivolous arguments I see on Twitter about, this versus that and this versus that. I'm like, dude, like,
waste of time.
It's a waste, but it's also just one of those things like, bro, like, you guys are fighting over who's the king of wrestling cards or who's this and who's that. It's like, bro, like, first of all, like, we left the Brits at 1776. Like, I don't bend the knee to nobody. This isn't, we're not dealing with royalty in this. You know what I'm saying? Like, anyone who's fighting over fake names and stuff, it's ridiculous. Like, collect what you like. You know what I mean? For me, like, I have one of those WCW autos of Big Show, like his rookie auto. I have a couple Wrestling All-Star cards that I've collected. Nothing big, but just random lower end people when I found them cheap. And I have Panini stuff. And for me, my whole argument is like, I view this as like my portfolio, right? And in portfolios, you diversify. You don't buy all Starbucks stock. You don't buy all one stock. You have various different things that you're diversifying. So for me, I just like finding cool cards. You know what I mean? Like, to me, I have, I don't even collect them, but I have like the Brawling Brutes triple auto from Immaculate that I got because I was literally trying to trade someone for a Mellow card that I had, and I kept buying them in breaks, and I just got lucky. And like, it's not like I'm huge on them, but it's more so just, all right, this is a cool card. A lot of times I'll get cards and I'm like, all right, can I trade this for something else? Do I know someone who likes this card? Because like certain people I know, like if I get a card of this wrestler, I already know like so many people I could hit up. Like I have a Rolodex. I know way too many people's PCs of my customers.
That's good though. That's great customer service.
Hey man, to me that type of stuff matters. My main thing is I really do my best to try to treat people how I'd want to be treated when it comes to like being in streams. I hate going in streams and like people don't say hi to you. People don't act like you exist. You just feel like a bag of money. And, I get it. But like, to me, like, I made a joke about it earlier, but like, I kind of view my streams as digital cheers. I come in, I know your name.
Yeah. I mean, that's what we're doing. That's what I'm doing right here with the chat room with you. We're just having a good conversation, hanging out here.
I try to know people's PCs as best I can. I can't remember everyone, but like I do my best to try to do that stuff. I'll even hit up customers with like eBay links I find, being like, hey, like, for example, I have this customer named Ahag and he loves Gallus. And I'd be like, hey, like, I saw there's a Mark Coffey 101 on the Bay. I'm not making anything off this. I just wanted to send it to you because I know you like Mark Coffey. Stuff like that, showing people that you actually care about them past like, just wanting their money. Because obviously it's a job. So people understand that I'm doing this to make money. But having said that, like, I don't have to make people feel like they're a number. Or like, part of like, oh, I need this and I need that. It's more so for me, it's like, I really enjoy building communities. That's what I was doing in music before I started doing this. So,
which I promise we're going to get into the main event of this discussion, but let's get to some of these questions. Which set of cards do you think is the most collectible? Not necessarily worth the most, but the best set to collect. Zach Huff personally feels that Select took a step forward this year. So, what do you think about that question?
Well, first of all, to prove my point, this is my guy Huff Cards. Huff PCs, Candice LeRae. So just so you know, off the top of my head, I do keep these in the back of my head.
Isn't it amazing in wrestling that no matter what the wrestler is, there's a collector for them? Like, that's amazing to me.
Find me a Quincy collector then.
I bet there's one out there.
Find it for me. If there's somebody who collects everyone. It's funny, there's a running joke about that. It's like someone collects everyone. It took me a while to find someone who collected Tamina. It took me a while to find someone to collect certain people, but yeah,
they're out there.
They're out there, yeah. I appreciate that, Zach. Thanks for the kind words, brother. What do you think is the most collectible, or the most? I like iMac of all the Panini stuff personally. I like iMac a lot because it has the triple and quadruple autos, which I just think are sick, especially all the on-card stuff. I think Impeccable is extremely slept on. You know, Impeccable, the designs are, as a whole, aren't quite as exciting as iMac or anything like that. But, you know, besides the bars, those Hall of Fame cards, the championship cards, I heavily enjoyed. I think especially I haven't heard anything about Impeccable a second run. You know what I mean?
Yeah, who knows what's going to happen now?
Right. And I think, you know, Panini's probably going to get through their contract because from what I've seen, it doesn't seem like WWE has much of an argument past getting a better deal from Topps. But for me, as far as like newer stuff, if I could collect anything, I would love, I think everyone would like to have like a Hogan or a Ric Flair or an Andre, from Wrestling All-Stars. I think something like that would just be cool to have in like certain, like I said, diversifying my portfolio and having some bigger pieces that are just good long-term holds, barring Hogan doing something else too offensive. I think Hogan value should stay pretty good and stuff like that. And I would love to get more into, like you said, the WCW autograph sets. It just seems certain stuff, as fun as it sounds, just the price point just seems freaking insane. So I haven't really dove into too much, but I do like Select a lot. Select's pretty cool.
Here's another comment here from Ryan. Combined shipping is always a big thing for me on eBay. If a seller states the description that they combine, he literally tries to get as much from that seller in that transaction as possible. Yeah, and that's why I offer free shipping on all my eBay items for that exact reason. People don't have to do the math. They just add it, put it in the cart, and go.
That's one of the things I like, too, about the Schway Wrestling Network now is, like, for example, I'm taking a break this Sunday, but for the last couple of weeks, we've had, AEW break on Wednesday, WWE break on Sunday. It allows me to actually combine shipping on those two breaks for people, as well as, like, let's say normally I break on Wednesdays on the network. This week, my friend Che from Body Slam Toys is going to be doing a break on the network instead of me. So if you bought a spot in his break and went on the network, you could actually like see what stuff he's selling outside of the break and also buy it and combine the shipping for singles that he has on the network as well as like if I'm breaking on there and you're like, oh, Schway has the Jumbo Matte Relic auto of Miro. I'd love to buy that off Schway. It's like, well, now you have discounted shipping because you already brought into the break, which is one of the nice things versus Whatnot that I think the network provides is like the opportunity to do those types of things. I saw a lot of people buy into my AEW break who I thought maybe wouldn't have, but it's like shipping's an extra quarter now versus being an extra $5 to start off a new package, which definitely helps out in those situations.
Yeah, it's definitely a good incentive. Here's a double question.
Yep.
So this is our PSA cards, WWE PSA cards worth anything, and a follow-up. He's got the Shield rookie with Roman, Dean, and Rollins. So we'll leave it on this and let you tackle that one.
Yes. I mean, it's kind of broad, but yeah, I mean, it depends on the card, really. I'd say a Roman rookie would definitely be worth some bread. I mean, when you say worth anything, I would be curious as what your threshold for anything would be, but I've seen PSA cards go for exorbitant amount of money, and then I've seen PSA cards go for jack, because like I said, any given Whatnot stream, you can, like, my friend the other day walked in. I didn't buy anything because he's the one who told me about the stream, but he got a Roxanne Perez red auto PSA, I believe 10 for like $60, which to me is a huge steal. you know, and he had a Cody Mojo for like $70 from Prism PSA 10, which again, to me, huge steal. So it really depends on who's selling it, what the card is, and how long you're willing to wait. You know what I mean? Because certain cards, I see a lot of people, to me, the biggest mistake people make on eBay is just starting stuff at $1. You know, like, and trusting eBay to give them fair comparisons. You know, I had some guy in a stream the other day, we did a blaster case break with Select, and I pulled a Roman Tiger ringside for one of my customers, which to me is a good card. Yeah. The case overall was pretty crappy, but that card was amazing. But another person in the same stream was like, oh, I don't know how much that's worth. I just sold a PSA 9 Cena from the same set, Tiger ringside, for like $70. And the reason he sold it for $70 is he started it on eBay at $1.
On auction, I bet.
Auction. Yeah, and he doesn't have a following, doesn't have feedback like that. And just to me, like, certain cards are too big for me to trust eBay to start.
Yeah.
You know, like certain cards I'd rather, like, I collect too. So I'm totally fine just sitting on certain cards. Certain other cards, I'm like, all right, I want to sell this because, you know, certain people, like, for example, you know, a lady who may be, I think, a potential flash in the pan or whatever, who I think may not be a long-term hold. I'm like, all right, you know, like I had a Nikita Lyons ringside last year tie-dye, and I was like, all right, Nikita's cool, but I'm like, realistically, like, what's the long-term potential here? Let me move this now before, you know, I wait. And what happened? I moved it and the value went down significantly. So it's one of those things where it's like trying to, you know, figure out who do you think's a good long-term hold. Like Roman Reigns to me is a good long-term hold. Seth Rollins, even though I think Seth is extremely undervalued, is an amazing long-term hold, especially since he's supposed to be in the new Captain America movie, which I've seen no one else really talk about. And I'm like, dude, like, he's going to be in a Marvel movie. Like, how are people not?
That's got to be a wrestling centric mindset, because most other people, like, we see it in sports card world all the time. Like, the minute, I mean, they're grasping at straws sometimes. The minute a documentary comes out, the minute this person is in this movie, or the minute this person's on this TV show or in this crossover thing, they're like trying to flip the cards and look at that aspect. And it doesn't seem like a lot of wrestling fans look at things like that.
I mean, look at Batista, man. Like, I always have trouble selling Batista in breaks. And to me, it's like, dude, this guy was in Guardians of the Galaxy. And in all honesty, you could make a legitimate argument that he's the best wrestler turned actor. I'm not saying he is, but you could make a legitimate argument that he's the best one. And part of that's because they cast The Rock pretty much in the same role in every movie, as much as I like The Rock. But this guy's really good. And, you know, in my blaster case the other day, it was a struggle to get $10 for Batista. And I'm like, dude, like, you know, some of the people going for more than Batista is just like shocking. I'm like, damn, this guy has autos, he's a legend, and he has the Hollywood crossover. You think he'd be worth more. But I guess in terms of WWE, he didn't have the longest run comparatively to a Cena or someone else. So, like, he doesn't get quite as much love. But even Cena, I feel like slightly undervalued too, personally.
Oh, yeah. I mean, when you look at the kind of the overall work and longevity and legacy that some of these people have left, and we've got a question that we're going to touch on that has to tie in with this. We'll get to that in just a second.
Yeah,
here's a comment from Watch the Breaks. This is the comment of the show. I only sell cards above comps.
Well,
isn't that's the dream job right there? Selling everything for more than they're listed.
I know personally, there's a lot of times I've sold cards where people are like, I can't believe you got that much. And I'm like, well, I told them that I wasn't selling it. Otherwise, I'd just keep it.
Yep.
And when they know that you're not lying, then it's like, that's the thing. Like, a lot of people, other people know, like, I've had people hit me up to sell cards for them and they don't have the patience and they end up selling cards earlier for less versus if they had just held out and trusted in me. I know they could have gotten more, but they just are like, I want the money now.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Another comment back from Ramos King of Games. He's got a Jim Ross auto in PSA. Awesome.
Ooh, little Jim Ross.
All right. Here's the question that I said we were going to get to. Do you think your customers are more wrestling collectors or card collectors that are picking up wrestling cards? And I want to tie in a second question on this, what we were just talking about. Do you think if we've seen so many more wrestling card collectors come in just in general, and do you think that some of these people are afraid to pay certain amounts for certain cards just because maybe they don't have it. Maybe they've never collected cards in general, so they don't understand what the potential value of some of these things could be. So they see your Bret Hart Gold Bar 1 of 1, and they're like, oh, I'd love to have that. But they don't understand maybe the legacy of that product and what that means from just a rarity, scarcity, value perspective. So I know it's kind of two questions in one here, but we'll let you tackle those.
I think a lot of the people who are coming in are people who like wrestling, but view it as a potential like easy flip or investment, especially with Panini coming out. Like the one thing Panini does for people is it caters to sports cards collectors, you know, because if you're a sport card collector, you can be like, all right, well, this is a rock gold from like Prism or whatever, right? Rock gold to 10. So this is similar to like, you know, Justin Herbert gold to 10 out of Prism. You know, it's the same product, just different people. So that's one of the nice things about Panini is it like for guys who may collect wrestling but don't know how to collect wrestling cards because they're just not used to it. There's a comparison in the other product for them to see. It's like, oh, well, this is a Kaboom of The Rock versus a Kaboom of LaMelo Ball or whoever. So I think that's one of the things you see. I believe there's still a high group of people who are just wrestling collectors. I think you see a lot of those. More of the people who are here for the wrestling cards join the network because they're like, they like the community. They like being able to like, you know, some of this, I was joking with my customers, I'm going to stop calling them breaks and just call them thefts because I've been getting just destroyed on some of these deals I've been running on the network so far. But I think it's, if I had to guess, I'd say
marketing costs.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. I'm trying to get people to come out, so I get it. But yeah, I think it's probably, I would lean more towards card collectors that are picking up wrestling, but there's a lot of people who are like wrestling collectors. Because for me personally, like, you know, I had, I'm sure you know Flex, right? Flex Burkett.
Yep.
Yeah. Great guy, but man, as a mellow collector, that man drives me crazy because he has this 101. He has the black 101 from Prism, and I was gonna buy it. And I was like, I don't know, it's a little high. And then he bought it, and then he reposted at 30K. So I just know I'm never getting that card. But I was like, oh, that's cool. And I was like, yeah, I legit probably have at least 12 mellow 101s currently.
Nice.
He doesn't have that many. And someone on Twitter literally was like, well, his 1 of 1 black Prism is worth more than all of yours combined. And I'm like, well, to me, I'm not a sports collector, right? I only collect wrestling cards. As much as I like sports, it's too expensive. You know, I just haven't gotten into it because I'm like, I know if I get into it, I'm such a completist that like I would want to really get into it. It's too expensive. But to me, I'm like, just because you tell me Prism is worth more than Select doesn't mean I believe you. You know,
and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Like, you know, your collection is your collection. So who cares what something is worth more than another if you're happy with what you have, you know?
My argument is just like a 1 of 1 is a 1 of 1. There's only 1 of each card, you know, and I know historically Prism goes for more than Select.
Sure.
I know this and that. Like I value like Melo's rookie stuff more than his current stuff for 101s. But besides that, to me, it's like, well, it's a 101. You know, that's how I view it. I have no historical context for caring about Prism. Or to be honest, like I've never been big on Prism. I don't think the designs are that great, personally. But yeah, for me, it's just a 101's a 101. And that's one of the reasons low key why I've debated giving up my Melo collection is just because I'm such a completist. It bothers me to not have that card.
Makes sense.
And like Flex did nothing wrong, but just the type of collector that I am, it's like the fact that I don't have certain Melo cards. Like there's days where I'm literally, because I have, you know, if you want to talk about super collecting, like I have a whole BCW four spot container just full of just Melo cards.
That's awesome.
And he doesn't have a lot of cards. Like he's only been in WWE for like a year, so it's a ton. But yeah, I don't know. The whole sports cards comparison and people telling me how certain sets are worth more because, well, historically Prism's worth more than Select. It's like, I don't care. I just want my 101s. I want my low numbered Melos. I just want to have the best Melo collection. You know?
Makes sense. Mark, thanks for the question. Ryan's back. I shop for my customers a lot, many times on Schway's breaks.
Hey, Ryan, with the deals you're getting, why not? And you thought the Whatnot deals were good, man. Like, some like Undertaker went for $5 in my last break on the network. So I'm saying there's
crazy.
and tons of steals, because it's like you said, it's a marketing cost for me at this point. As long as I'm breaking even or hopefully coming out a little bit ahead, then I just view it as a cost thing, and I kind of view it as a kind of like a customer loyalty program at this point.
Yeah.
Like my good customers, the people who really like me past just coming on and trying to rob me of my money, the people who are really there and enjoy like what I have to offer and enjoy these types of breaks, they come in and they're getting like crazy steals. But for me, it's like the fact that people would go out of their way to download an entirely new app and spend their time along with their money with me is like something I don't take lightly. Like I've seen a lot of people come on Whatnot, be there for a few months and then just like bail, and leave.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those things where it's like, I don't want to do that because I value the community that we put together. And like a lot of great people, like I said, I've met on Whatnot, and a lot of them are coming over to the network now. And the hope is, eventually I'm trying to get to 500 people by the end of the year. That's kind of, we'll see how that goes. But the response so far has been pretty good, and it's a learning process. And I'm trying to figure out what I can do better and what we can do better to get people to come out.
Trey is back. A lot of people in the network know each other's PC, which helps a lot. Yeah, absolutely. We talked about that. Todd, I know my weaknesses are the gold shimmers out of 10s, especially if it involves Viking Raiders, Imperium, and Elias. I guess I'm just fascinated by bright, shiny objects.
Todd,
You're not the only...
I will tell you, Todd, there's a place for you in the Schway Wrestling Network, because my last break, I believe, Elias, the Viking Raiders, and possibly at least one member of Imperium didn't get sold, and they all went for $1. So there
you go. So there's your shot at some fancy, bright, shiny cards.
So to tell you how ignorant I am as a collector, I actually have, I never go too in depth about what I have as far as my collection, just because it's, you're going to think it's funny, but like, I'm worried about people having leverage about what I want. So I actually have 2 of the gold shimmer rookie mellows out of the 3 from last year's Prism. So if I get one more, I think that can combine into a 101, hopefully. Maybe that counts.
We'll see. That'll be interesting to keep track of. Another question on the 2013 Top Shield rookie card Slam Attacks. What's your opinion on Slam Attacks? I think they're cool. A lot of people hate them.
I think Slam Attacks, I'm not huge like on some of the designs. The autos look amazing. I love the card stock. This is going to sound so
yeah.
But the 2021, the one I just ripped, you rip that, then you rip AEW, then you rip some of like women's division and stuff like that. Like, I remember when I was first getting into doing this, I had my mom open up some packs with me, and we opened up a box of Topps Finest, and we opened up a box of Women's Division 2021. And my mom worked in like, doing women's conferences in the 70s, huge feminist. And she looks at the Women's Division cards. She's like, man, these cards suck. Like, why are they so low quality compared to these other ones? Because like you look at Slam Attacks, you just feel the quality in your hand, especially the Slam Attacks Chrome. I'd say Slam Attacks is probably my favorite. But man, like that auto, I think it's slept on because some of the designs look a little goofy, but the hits can just be huge. Like I said, my friend Zane and I were talking about this before. My friend bought the Rocky Maivia 101 from Slam Attacks on a random Whatnot stream.
Nice.
Yeah, so there's a lot of good value in Slam Attacks. I think people sleep on it, but the price point's not terrible. Filling breaks is pretty hard, though. I tried to do a break of that 2 weeks ago, and I ended up pretty much eating a decent amount of the spots, sadly. So
it's a kind of a split set. Like you either love it or you hate it. I don't know too many people that are kind of in between on it.
Yeah.
Zach's back. Thanks for answering the questions.
Thanks
for asking the questions. Thanks for joining the stream. I'm going to skip a couple of these comments here. Let's see. Here's a good one. You guys collect for long-term or what?
Yeah, I collect. I look at my PC as like my portfolio, to be honest. So I have certain people I look for, and then there's certain opportunities that just present itself that are too good to pass up, where I'm just like, you know what, like I'm not huge on the legacy set from Chronicles. Having said that, I got a good deal on the Hogan 101, so why not? It's a Hogan 101, and for me, like I don't know if I should be saying this because I'm giving away part of my hand, but personally, I feel like Leaf stuff is extremely undervalued, and a lot of
It's like slam attacks. You either love it or you hate it.
yeah. I mean, to me, there's a lot of stuff in Leaf. I'm like, but there's a lot of stuff where it's like, where else am I going to get an Austin 101 auto
Or
for that
like
cheap?
one of my cards that's in my PC that I don't even know how much it's worth. I just saw it and had to have it. Is the Hogan Dennis Rodman dual auto, and I know it's stickers, but to have those, like what you just said, like they're giving me a product that I can't find anywhere else.
Yeah, I actually so another shameless plug. I do a weekly wrestling thread on Wednesdays on my Twitter at Schway Nostalgia, and someone had posted a 101 Hogan Ric Flair dual auto for like $200.
Yeah,
and you're just like, what? Like this is still a Hogan 101, Ric Flair 101 dual auto. And I feel like a lot of times Leaf, I even got a Sasha Banks 101 for not much more than that, auto. And I know it's Leaf and it's not officially licensed, but to me, I'm like, hey man, especially with someone like Flair, who you don't really see sign as much anymore in WWE product. Like I can't, it's been some years, probably since, a couple years before Topps even lost its license was the last time Flair signed. I don't know.
yeah.
I'm not too hip, even though he does sign a lot of events and all that. But there's a lot of cool combinations in Leaf. They have so much potential. They kind of frustrate me because I feel like if they really honed in on what made them great, Leaf could be a big company, which to me is their whole Hollywood division doing music and actors. Like if they just did that and focused on that in wrestling, they could have a great little niche there, but they don't really do it.
My 2 cents on this, and this is, I have a completely, like, I don't know that anybody thinks like I do. I'm sure there are people, just like there are collectors for every wrestler. My PC stuff is my PC stuff. I don't care if it's worth $1 million. I don't care if it's worth $1. If it's something I have a connection with, I keep it. The day that I don't really feel that connection anymore, I sell it. Or
Right.
if I get to the point where I've got, more bigger business stuff that's going on or personal stuff, and I need that money for something else, I'll sell it. Like that just is what it is. Like I stopped doing the buying for long term and all that stuff. Like if it's not something I collect for my PC stuff, I flip it as soon as possible.
So I could tell you how I recently got burned on that. So I have so much crap in my basement. Sometimes stuff gets lost and I just get caught up doing other stuff and forget to post. Like one of the things I think I need to work on is really just posting on eBay more consistently, because it's like between whatnot, filling breaks, district, homework, all that stuff gets put to the side. But like I have 2 Matt Riddle 101s, and I'm not a Matt Riddle fan. So like for me, that's something where it's like I should have been put those up months ago to move him, and now he's fired. So it's like, all right, it'll be interesting to see how much of this loss I can recoup, or if I'm able to find someone who's willing to trade me something I actually want for it or whatever. So I would say, definitely if you're not, like Zane is saying, if it's not someone you 100% believe in, or it's not one of those people we mentioned like Hogan, and I'd still, I may get crap for this. I still feel like Hogan might be a bit more of a riskier long-term hold than people realize. Personally,
Could be, yeah.
Just because he's had some weird stuff going in his personal life.
Well, that and the modern collector. A lot of people are going to hate me for saying this, but there's a lot of modern collectors out there that could care less about Hulk Hogan. They could care less about Ric Flair. Like they want Roman and they want the Cody and stuff like that.
I mean, to be honest, based off what I've been seeing on Whatnot, Hogan usually sells for around the same as them, if not a little bit more than those guys. So there's still people who like Hogan's still kind of viewed in that upper light. John Cena's very much slept on. It's just I know Hogan had some issues as regard to, his weird sex tape stuff, his weird comments about being able to say a certain word, which was, to me, it was just like, bro, you need to stop while you're, I wouldn't say ahead, but just stop,
Yeah.
So it's just a lot of things like that, make me worried. Even his new vapes, it's like, it's one of those things where I'm like, I'm worried that in a week or two, he might just say something that kills his value. You never know. Even Ric Flair for a second last year with the whole, dark side of the ring, plane ride from hell thing. like WWE took Ric Flair off the intro. They pretty much scrubbed him from their history for a few months, you know? So
It was funny on him though, because as soon as that episode came out, all of his values went up. It had the reverse effect.
On Flair?
Yeah, I watched it. It was nuts. Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting how those things work, because a lot of people don't care about that stuff, but like,
yeah,
for Hogan in particular, he said certain stuff in the past, and I'm just like I know certain people now are like, you know, very much in the Iron Sheik camp of F. Hulk Hogan, you know. But
yeah, and I'm not, like I said that earlier. I'm just trying to give kind of an unbiased opinion, because like that Hogan PMG I have is still one of my favorite cards in my collection.
No, that's a sick card, and I'm not.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not saying.
But I also don't fault people who think that Hogan is trash or don't want anything to do with vintage stuff like that.
Dude, everyone has their opinions. For me, it's something I take into account when I buy Hulk Hogan stuff.
Right. Yeah.
You know, it's not like I have stopped. Like, I have some nice Hogan stuff personally right now. I have a couple Leaf 101s too. So like, it's not like I don't like Hogan. It's just something that I definitely take into account when I buy certain people.
Here's another comment we were just talking about. Ryan's got the 95 WCW cards Sting, and he's got 12 of them.
Yeah, I mean, it's a sick card. You're talking about that's from the main event joint, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yep, he's got the card he's talking about. I think Sting's got someone in the Scorpion Deathlock.
I saw Ryan post that. Very, very sick card.
Thoughts on Edge autos, up and down in value, would you say? I'll let you take this.
Yeah, Edge is another person who's just very undervalued. You know, in general, there's a lot of people, once you get into Legends, Rock, Hogan, Cena to an extent, I think Cena's undervalued. And like Roman, and once you get past like those four men, guys, you know, Bret Hart, even Shawn Michaels recently, his value hasn't been that great. Triple H, their values haven't been that great. So for me personally, I would guess that since Edge is going to AEW, I'd say maybe initially there might be like a little bit of a spike for some of his autos when he actually signs, which based off of Upper Deck's release schedule, Lord knows when we'll ever see an Edge auto. But there's a lot of people who are just, you know, I don't really know if they're pro wrestling fans. I feel like they're more WWE fans, because a lot of people are just like, oh, Edge is gone. He's dead to me, you know, and like his value might decrease because he's in AEW, which to me, like, I personally like competition. I think competition is good for both companies. And personally, I like AEW. I like ripping AEW stuff. I just wish Upper Deck released it sooner and potentially had more autos in some of their products, because 25% out of a 16-box case for autos is not the best odds.
I think you could argue that not only Edge, but kind of taking this question and building off of it, you could argue that some of the talent out here has way too many autos to begin with. So, you know, my kind of flip to this would be like, what does this do to Edge's Prism Golds? What does it do to his tie dye? Something in that reign, as opposed to just the autograph.
Well, I think you were, you know, I forgot which podcast you had it on, but I think it might have been the personal collecting ones, but I might have misquoted this, but yeah, like AEW, I don't know, just the resale value there hasn't been as great. And then you look at Panini too, and they so mass produce autos. You know, look at Undertaker, Stone Cold Hogan autos have probably gone down in value since Panini's taken over, just because, you know, they're in every set.
And then people get mad at them because they get them in a break and they can't sell them for what they thought they could. Right. So it's like they're mad either way.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, some of the prices, like, you know, there's a lot of stuff. Like, for example, I Percy'd a case of Select last year when it came out, and I hit a gold John Cena auto, and in hindsight, I should have sold that immediately. Same with, I hit a gold Roman, just concourse, not auto, and I should have sold both. But I'm like, oh, these are going to be great long-term holds, you know. And that Cena, someone sold it on the Bay, and it went for like 150. And I'm like, bro, that's a gold Cena to 10. You know, if I had sold it at the time, I could have probably made $1,000, you know, and I held on to it because I was like, oh, it's Cena. And now it's like, I'd rather, if I hit anything like that, I learned the lesson, like, unless I really care about it, I'm just going to flip it. And if I really want it down the road, I could probably get it again for cheaper if I play my cards. Maybe I do, maybe I don't. But like, you know, that's definitely guided me into some deals. In the past, I would have been like, well, I want an extra this or extra that. And now I'm just like, you know what, like, I'd rather not risk it, you know.
To kind of close this specific question out, and we'll get your take on this, and then we've made it through all of our questions to the moment, so we'll start talking about the network.
Yeah.
I think the value of anybody, you know, we've talked so many talents today about this person's undervalued. Nobody's talking about this person. We're talking about Edge right now. The thing that's going to cause the values of anything to go up, whether it's a base card, whether it's an autograph, whether it's a one-of-one, is just getting more collectors. Like,
Yeah.
we're going to get more. We have to have more wrestling fans understand that wrestling cards are a thing. That's okay to, you know, you can spend $20 on this autograph as opposed to buying that elite action figure at, you know, Walmart, which you can do both. But like so many people, like cards, I think for a wrestling fan who did not grow up collecting cards of any kind, it's such a like, it's not something that's familiar to them, so they don't quite understand. So that's kind of my closing comment, and I'll get your thoughts on that. Just the more collectors we get, the more people who understand cards across the board, the more that these things are going to be valued.
Yeah, I could see that. I just based off what I've seen though, most people like women's cards, man. At least that's the one thing I love about, streaming and doing this stuff is like you really get to see in real time who people value and who the people want. I'm getting real world feedback about, when a product first comes out, for example, I could literally watch, this is going to sound funny, I could watch a product die on Whatnot. Like I can go in and see the stream where a certain product literally died because the comps got destroyed. And it's one
just
of the
a race to the bottom.
Yeah, essentially, like when people like a product, like for example, when AEW Metal came out, the first person who had it was able to get like, great prices as a seller, and then after the first break, the prices go progressively down to the point now where like besides pro wrestling tees, and that's just because they have such a big fan base, and a lot of people who don't even like wrestling cards, there's AEW fans who follow them on Whatnot. They're like the only people who can really fill out a full PYW case break. And, not to toot my own horn, but I definitely, in my eyes, I'm the top AEW breaker on Whatnot. I'm definitely top 3 minimal. I would debate myself on that, but it's one of those things where it's like certain products just die. And I bring that up to say, like, for Edge and people like that, like, I don't know if Edge is going to be super valued the way he should be, just because it's one of those things. He's in the Hall of Fame. He's been in WWE. He's going to AEW now. A lot of WWE people are just like, I don't like AEW. So I think his value is probably going to go down. The only way I could see Edge value going up is if he does something else in the acting field. Like, to be honest, I'd be more interested in getting an Edge auto from that TV show Vikings probably than I would be.
Good call. Yep.
Just because that's more of a unique card. Just like we were talking about before I got on, like I would love to have one of those Rock like Scorpion King cards.
And see, I would like to have the Rock Doom over everything.
Yep. I was about to bring up the Doom card too, because for me, like the Rock doesn't sign as much. And I'm just, like I said, I would PC the Rock if money was no object, but money is an object and I can't afford to buy Rock and breaks usually. So,
all right, we are caught up. So I'm going to turn it over to you. If you guys have questions about the network or anything we're getting ready to talk about, just drop it in the chat like you have been. Talk to us about starting the wrestling network, and I am going to add it on the screen here for us right now.
There you go. Yeah, so basically, I've been on Whatnot for a year and a half, been breaking probably a little less than a year, and it's great. I like it, but I don't know, man. I feel like there's a lot of, trying to word this right, tribalism in wrestling.
Yes, we just talked about it. The Edge collectors that don't want AEW cards if Edge gets those.
Yeah, well, there's like, I don't know, it's just very cliquey and stuff. And, I love Whatnot. It's cool. It's a great tool. I meet a lot of great people on there. I'm not going to stop breaking on Whatnot. But the one thing I like about the network is like, I think the energy is a lot better because you go on Whatnot, you get trolls. Zane, when I tell you this, I legitimately have haters off of Whatnot. I used to have haters.
I believe it.
When I was in music, I had people write diss tracks about me. And I thought that was hilarious. True story, I swear to God. And,
I believe it.
And now, like, I have people doing similar stuff. And I never really thought that, like, there would be this much crossover between music and wrestling cards. But the one thing I like about the network is like I said, it's, we're not as big as Whatnot yet. The goal is to grow it out. The more people we get in it, the cooler stuff we can do. But the people who are in it are like, you know, great people I've met off the app, guys who are like, you know, they come on there. The deals you'll get on there are just significantly better than Whatnot because the fees are lower, you know, so I can offer better deals to my customers. And the network's hosted by an app called District. The people at District have been very supportive of me. Like, they hit me up. They wanted me to do PYW breaks on there. You know, they're like, hey, like, no one else has done this on here. We'd love for you to be a part of it. And one of the nice things too is, like, you go in there, we have group chats. People can list their own cards too. So like,
yep, I've seen tons of that.
Yeah,
singles.
Which to me is great, because one of the things I try to sell the people who are part of it is like, hey, you come on here, you post your cards on the network, it'll be cheaper than eBay. Yeah, we do not have the same reach as an eBay or a Whatnot. Having said that, if you post something on here, I would be like, pretty much when people post stuff, I share it on my social medias, and I try to give them like free promotion by, you know, doing those types of things and incentivizing people. And a lot of times, you know, like I said, I have a Rolodex of names in my head for people who collect certain people. So like, there's been a lot of the sales that have come off this app have been me seeing, like, for example, there was a Big E number to 5 on there from Slamatex, and I have 2 Big E collectors. I hit up both of them, and the card was sold within 4 hours. And it's not even my card. I'm just trying to help my customers who are posting on there, because I get hit so much by customers being like, Schway, what do you think the comp on this is? Or Schway, like, where do you think I could sell this? Do you know anyone who would buy this card from me? And I'm going to be honest, in the past, I've had issues with customers asking me to help them sell cards, them promising me a part of the card for helping them sell it, and then once I help them sell the card, completely backing out on what they promised me.
Yep,
you know,
I've had that happen too.
Yeah, because I helped this one dude sell a Becky 101, and I helped him get an extra like $400. And then when he got the money, he told me he was going to give me 10%. And let's just say he started complaining and did not give me the 10%. You know what I mean? So it's like, for me, I was like, you know what? I spent like hours of my life trying to help that guy. So I'm like, with this, at least it's like, if people post on there, I can help them. You know, I'm not really making too much off of it, but I view it more as a long-term investment.
So this is like, just start at the beginning. If somebody wants to join this network, what do they need to do, and what's kind of what they can expect just getting into it?
Yeah, so all you need to do is, if you check me out, Schway Nostalgia on all social media, there's a link in my bio. You can click on it. You join the network. As you can see on the screen, there's an apply to sell button. So if you click apply, I'll accept you in to sell, and that's all you have to do. You come in there. We have community chats in there where we're talking. I've been doing breaks on Wednesdays and Sundays. I'm probably going to hold off on the one on Sunday just because I got a final for my economics class, which I hate. But you know, it's one of those things where I just feel like, you know, as the old saying is, you got to spend money to make money. And at this point, I'm trying.
We actually had a comment similar to that right here.
Okay.
Scared money don't make money.
Yeah, exactly. It's just one of those things. Like, I'm expecting. At first, I'm not gonna lie. You know, doing this is I'm putting myself out there a lot, because I'm DMing people on Instagram. I'm hitting people up on Whatnot. I'm hitting people up on Facebook. I'm hitting people up on Twitter. And it's essentially asking people to download, which, by the way, it has a website too. So if you're an Android user, you can use the website as well, and it does the same stuff. I'm basically asking people to join a whole new website / application off the strength of just believing in me and liking my breaks more than other people, you know? So my hope is that, you know, down the road, I would be able to not break necessarily on this exclusively, but break more on here, because we actually, versus Whatnot, usually go in a stream, and then you have to wait for the actual stream to either bid on an auction, or you could buy it now in the store. The one nice thing about this is I can actually run auctions eBay style for my breaks. So we've been starting people at $1 and running them for the course of a week and giving people the option to bid on them. And then also, if I'm doing 2 breaks that week, you get to combine shipping. So like, for me, like, I'm trying to sell people more on the fact that it's like, if you join, you'll be able to get really good deals comparatively. Like, my breaks have been going significantly cheaper than competitions on Whatnot. I can guarantee.
Something else I just thought of.
Yeah.
Like, you're building this on your own we'll just call it your own platform, essentially, even though, you've got another platform that's hosting it for you. You know what I mean? There's a lot of talk about fanatics kind of putting the kibosh on Whatnot. And this is a way that you're not going to be beholden to that platform. And a lot of people are going to get, I don't want to use they're just going to get caught. They're not going to have an outlet anymore. And here you're already building out this platform for yourself. So I think it's a great idea.
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, that's, something that I always talk about with, for example, like one of my main advisors, people are going to laugh, is my mom, because she has a lot of experience in marketing. She doesn't know much about wrestling cards past what I've taught her, but she knows a lot about marketing. And from a hypothetical standpoint, like what happens if something happens to Whatnot and it's just gone tomorrow? Things happen. So that's why I've always been very heavy on like, hey guys, follow me on Whatnot, but also check me out on Instagram, check me out on Twitter, follow me here, follow me there. I try to convert people into followers onto different apps because, Whatnot could just disappear. You never know. Things happen. If you had told Blockbuster they would have gone out of business, they would have told you were crazy. A lot of these things, like, what was that? God, I'm trying to remember. The company before Zoom. You remember there was a whole Skype.
Skype, yeah.
You talk about someone dropping the ball. Like Skype had been the standard for years, and then the pandemic comes around and everyone starts using Zoom. Skype had one job and they dropped the ball, and it's essentially the exact same thing as Zoom. But why did Skype fail?
Hey, sorry, go ahead.
I'm like, who cares? At this point, it's one of those things where it's like, I'm going to hedge my bets and try to have, an alternative just in case. And like, I'm going to be honest, so far, like, if I was just looking at it from a monetary standpoint, definitely not worth my time from a monetary standpoint. But I just feel like if I keep building this and we keep going forward, hopefully it can be worth it. And I also think it could be a great tool because, for example, I'm having my first break that I'm not running on the network this Wednesday. My guy Che at Body Slam Toys is going to be doing his own AEW break on my network, which is cool that they'll allow me to have other people stream within my network. Is an option for me. And I'm hoping eventually to start doing that more often. It's just, I wouldn't say the highest standards, but like people are joining this off the strength of me. I don't want to ruin that. I'm not going to ruin my reputation on someone else that I'm not 100% behind. Like my guy Che, who's going to be breaking, like, I trust the fact that he's not going to send you your stuff like an asshole. He's going to take the time and make sure that your cards are sent properly and not damaged. Like, he's not going to offend people. Like, there's a lot of things where, like, dude, if I told you about some of the stuff I've seen on Whatnot, man, I know you wouldn't necessarily be surprised, but you'd just be shaking your head about some of the wild stuff that I see in other streams. You know what I mean?
You mentioned, what I was going to say was you mentioned Skype. And you notice we're on StreamYard right now. And that's because when Zoom started putting, like, they started limiting you. And then they started doing all these, like, they started taking away these free capabilities. I think they dropped the ball there too. So here we are on StreamYard. It's a really good a kind of analogy of what you were talking about.
I mean, it's funny because one of the biggest lessons I learned in music is never be complacent. Like once you think your spot is secured, that's where you're going to get screwed up, and that's where things can happen because you think stuff's sweet and you think it's never going to go down. Like, MC Hammer never thought he was going to go broke, but he did.
Good comparison.
Yeah, like people just think the gravy train's never going to stop, and it's just one of those things where it's like, no, like, I know a lot of sellers who go on. I joke about the circle of Whatnot. People come on, they're buyers off of me and other people. They start selling. They see me and other people doing well, and they just assume they're going to sign on, and money is just going to be shoveled at them on Whatnot, and not realizing that a lot of streams I do, I barely break even. Or I'm on, like, I've had a stream where I've been on for 15 hours, man.
And not to mention the work that you got to put in on the back end once that's all done. Like, nobody wants to do that.
Dude, like, I would be streaming more if I didn't have to do my unpacking, because there's a lot of breakers on Whatnot that I've seen where, like, they'll stream every day and I'm still waiting on a package from like 2 weeks ago or a month ago. And again, one of my main things that I preach as a streamer is just like, treat others how you'd want to be treated. If I got in a break, I wouldn't want my stuff 2 weeks later. So even though it costs me money not streaming every day, I don't do it if my stuff's not packed. You know, if my stuff's not packed, at least for me to drop off the next day or for me to drop off that day, like once I'm done with this interview, I have a whatnot break and a network break that I'm going to go drop off at the post office, because I don't want my customers coming in and being like, why are you breaking again if I still haven't gotten my stuff?
Right.
You know, that's just,
and it's funny you say that. Like, as soon as we get done with this, I've got orders to ship from a whole previous day of eBay. So like, people don't understand the back end stuff that we're doing. And then I've got to edit some videos to get up for next week. So when you're building networks or you're doing breaks or you're doing content or whatever, like, people just think it's this easy thing to get into and they just don't get it.
Yeah. Well, my, our good mutual friend, Alan, aka Win, is in the building, and he's been
there. He is.
Yeah. Alan and I actually hung out in DC when he came out. It was pretty cool.
Awesome.
And he's one of my main supporters, and like, he's been constantly on me about trying to do a podcast, and like, I really want to do a podcast. It's just, you know, between taking 2 classes for grad school, making money on whatnot, doing district stuff too on the network, and like other stuff that I want to do, because I don't want to be known as just a wrestling card breaker.
Right.
I feel like I provide stuff that other breakers.
Well, you just said it earlier. If you get complacent just doing the wrestling card breaker, like, what could happen, you know?
Right. Yeah, no, it's just one of those things where it's like, you know, I joke about it, but I'm dead serious. I view myself more as a sports card entertainer. Like, I'm here because like I like entertaining people. Like, you know, I need to do it before my gift card runs out, but I have like a gift card for the DC Improv to try to do like stand-up stuff, you know, and
go for it. Yeah, you got to lose.
Exactly. Whether or not I actually do stand-up or not, I'm like, hey, a lot of times in my stream, I'm just trying out material, and I'm just like, you know what? And I hope I can get a podcast popping once my finals are done next week, because I'm taking half-quarter classes, so knock on wood. But even just, you know, I'm amazed you're able to put out content so consistently, just because of the fact that, like, you know, even editing just audio or editing video can take a while. Like, I went to school for digital cinema, so I'm fully aware. Like, I've had a lot of stuff. I know how long it takes, you know.
Another comment here: the Schway Appreciation Society.
Application Society. We actually do have the Schway Small Business Association and the Schway Appreciation Society. We do, like, you know. But I've been surprised about, you know, when I got on Whatnot, I never thought that I would have people I genuinely considered friends, or like, you know, one of the main reasons, it's going to sound wild, that I didn't start a podcast and I didn't put myself out there before, was I was just like, who would ever want to listen to me talk? Who would ever want to hang out with me? You know? And then like, I get on Whatnot, I'm like, oh, like, people actually do enjoy hanging out with me. This is a new concept, you know? So it's just one of those things where it's like, my goal is to make more and more content and do other stuff. It's just, you only have, as you know, so many hours in the day to do all this stuff. And especially when like my only real help is, I have some like family members who help me here and there, and like, you know, would be a little down to help me on packing stuff. But like, man, you know, doing PYW breaks and sorting all that, packing all that, dude, it's a lot of work.
Hey, as long as you're going for it, you know what I mean? Like, I'll just talk about complacency in life. Like, I know too many people personally that just they don't want to take the chance. They don't want to put in the work, no matter if it's hobby stuff or life stuff. Like I said, whatever. And so I just applaud you. I mean, we both know what's going on, like, behind the scenes as far as how much work goes into this. So I just applaud you for continuing to grind this stuff out and enjoy doing it, you know?
No, I appreciate that, Zane. I mean, like I said, this is pretty new for me. It's just, you know, one of the things I don't want when because I'm in my 30s, but one of the things I don't want when I'm older to be like, man, I should have did this, I should have did that. Like, to me, I should have started a podcast when I was doing music, and I was too concerned about what other people thought about me instead of just not giving a shit. Sorry if I can't shit or not, but
oh no, it's fine. But it's you're right though. I'm the same way. Like, you know, I I don't know. I don't know why I started creating content in the first place. Like it's turned into this like fun creative outlet. So if I have fun making and editing a video and it gets 2 views, I don't care because I had fun doing it. But then I started realizing what you said. Like people actually care what I have to say, not because they're trying to like put me on a pedestal, but because maybe it struck a nerve with them and helped them out with their collecting and helped them change their mindset on something.
I mean, I sometimes joke about it, but like, and I've talked to Alan about this, but low key, like, some days I feel like I should be a motivational speaker. And I know it sounds really random, but like some of the times when I'm talking to customers and other people and they tell me about the stuff, because it's always easier dealing with other people's lives versus your own. Versus your own, you're like, well, there's this complication and that complication and this. And when you're hearing about someone else, and you're just like, you know what, like, why are you holding yourself back? Why do you think like this? And then I'm like, holy shit, I'm doing the exact same thing. Like, why do I care about, when I was doing music, I had guns pulled on me, man. You know what I'm saying? So
I believe it.
For me, it's one of those things where I'm like, oh man, no one's going to want it. Like, I let these hypothetical people that I couldn't even name for you if you asked me, in my head, convinced me that no one wanted to hear me talk. No one valued my opinion. I shouldn't be doing this. And Whatnot's really like opened me up to being like, you know what? Like, I just don't give a shit anymore. Like, if people like me, that's cool. Like, to me, I'm the type of person where it's like, even if I had beef with someone, if they want to reach out to me and squash it, or like I've tried to reach out to people and squash it, like, I don't care enough to like be hating on people and stuff. That's one thing I wish in the wrestling community, like,
It's complacency. Like, I'm sorry to cut you off, but like me and you, what we're doing different things. We don't got time to be dealing with this stuff.
Right.
So if people want to sit on social media and just yap at each other because they got nothing better to do with their lives, I guess that's fine. But I'm over here trying to build something. You're trying to build something. We're trying to contribute to the community.
And I feel like a lot of those people are people that we could all be building with too, if they were just so caught up in like, I'm right, you're wrong, blah blah blah. Like, I had someone. One of the reasons I got into wrestling cards is this one guy, I'm not going to name names, but he ended up blocking me because I told him to stop being so negative. And then I beat him on a wrestling thread for a card that he wanted. And I ended up winning it. It was a Kenny Omega dual auto and a couple other dual cards. And I ended up buying it. And he got so upset, he just blocked me. And I'm like, bro, like, you're a grown ass man with kids. Like, this is not that serious. Like, it should not be this.
No. Yeah, you're right.
Like, I just, there's different people. Like, there's so many people that, like, in normal lives, especially living in a place like DC that's so, like, it's like a politically based city, where it's like, oh, well, if you have different views than me, like, I don't even, like, I know people who, like, they're just like, oh, not to get in politics too much, but it's just like, oh, well, I don't like this person because they're part of a different party, and I don't like that person because they're part of it. And to me, that's such, like, a simplistic mindset. You know what I mean? Like, what brings us together, not what drives us apart, is more important to me, at least. And making people like getting angry at each other and not listening to other people, even in wrestling cards and anything in general in life.
Your political analogy you just used, it was like, oh, you mean wrestling card communities?
Yeah, no, exactly. It's just funny to me how people are arguing about how to collect something better, and it's just like, dude, like, who cares? You know what I mean? If it makes you happy, if it makes the other person happy, stop yelling at each other. Air hug it.
I like hearing other people's opinions, even if it's completely different than mine. It completely disagrees with mine, because I'm trying to learn something. Because occasionally I'm like, you know what? They're right. This is the way this should be done. I'm doing this wrong. Maybe I should look at things differently, as opposed to just getting angry about it.
Yeah, like, a perfect example of this is like my guy Piazza or Winna, right? Them and I will have phone calls and stuff. Like, I'll talk to them on the phone or whatever, and I'll just talk to them about something I'm thinking about doing wrestling card related. And Winna in particular is like, oh, you probably already thought about that. Well, you already thought of that. I'm like, bro, like, it doesn't matter if I already thought about this or that. Like, I'm trying to see how you process this as a wrestling card customer. I want your feedback. Right. You know what I mean? Like, you have a different mindset than I do. And like, Piazza is a fellow seller and whatnot. So for me, it's like, all right, like, what do you think about me doing this? How's this worked for you on whatnot? You know what I mean? Like, because to me, like, if it was up to me, I think all the wrestling breakers and whatnot should just come together. I'm not saying unionize, but like, I feel like we could be helping each other a lot more than is. A lot of people view each other as competition. To me, it's just unnecessary. You know, I think there's enough room for everyone to do what they do and to build each other up instead of trying to tear each other down. You know, which I don't know if it's a wrestling card thing or, you know, because you see people going crazy at sports events getting in fights recently too. So it's not just wrestling cards, just people get very opinionated. I'm right, you're wrong, and there's no middle ground. And I really do believe in that middle ground.
Here's a interesting comment. Ryan just sold 3 packs of Election 92 cards. I sell those singles in my eBay store quite a bit. So congrats on selling those 3 packs while we are talking about this. So one more thing I want to circle back with on the network. Okay, so people know you break.
Yep.
They know they can sell singles once they get approved.
Yep.
What else can they come to expect from features that are going to be on this network?
Features. So that's the one interesting thing about District is it's very much in beta. It's been around for like almost 2 years now. So there's certain stuff I'm hoping that they can like fix to be closer to whatnot in certain senses. But you know, I will say one of the nice things is like I actually talked to someone higher up at the app. You know, so like if there's an issue I have, like there's a good chance that we can get it sorted out relatively quickly. Sorry, Piazza, I'm really hoping that we can get the Android app out there soon. It's not quite there yet. But it's one of those things where it's like, I feel like there's just a lot of room to grow on here. You know, that guy RA Custom 3D, by the way, who was in the chat, I just added him. He doesn't even sell wrestling cards. He makes my custom stands.
Gotcha.
And I added him because I've been referring a lot of business to him. And I'm like, hey, man, you know, I know that there's a lot of people who've gotten their stuff based off of, you know, my recommendation. Like, why don't you just join the network? And I'm sure you could get more business. And he's actually going to be the official card stand sponsor of Schway. We're getting that set up currently. So, yeah, in the future, we're going to have more stuff with the leaderboard. The leaderboard, they're still figuring that out. The hope in the future, too, is like for someone like me, because I have the toy district, too, like I'm going to be making more districts than just wrestling as well. They will allow me to connect my Shopify, because I actually have a Shopify, ShwayNostalgia.com. Buy all your Schway Nostalgia merch and or vintage action figures there. I'll be able to like import my stuff from Shopify onto their app, which, you know, once that happens, my district for toys is going to be popping because I have over 1,000 stuff, like items on my store, like my legit website. So once I get that set up, you know, being able to transition between those is going to be great. I'm hoping in the future to have more breakers on there, doing more breaks. And I'm just trying to really, right now, it's a very much a trial and error period of figuring out what doesn't. You know, like, for example, we ran the break on Sunday and I probably barely broke even. I ended up holding on to like 40 spots that didn't sell. So it's like, all right, what am I going to do to draw interest? Because right now I'm mostly running breaks on there to get people to join. You know, I'm trying to get the chat more active. I'm trying to get people more interested and used to listing and buying stuff on the app. You know, like for me, one of the things that I take advantage, like when I first went on the app, I just looked up WWE and sent a lot of offers to people. And, you know, it was surprising. Like I got a Rhea Ripley Topps Chrome 21 auto numbered to 10 for like $60, you know, because someone on there just didn't know anything about wrestling and they just had it up. And then I got like a Bray Wyatt rookie auto to 25, like for like $100. You know, like a lot of this stuff is just like throw out offers. There's no minimum offers. So it's like for me, I'll just go in there if there's something I like, I just throw in an offer. Or like my guy Che, who's running the break this week, I usually buy into AEW breaks and whatnot. So like for me, I'm like, oh great, I can put a bid on MJF, I can put a bid on Jade, and maybe I get him. Hopefully I do. If not, at least I help him drive up the price a little bit. For me, it's just like I view the opportunity. I like having an alternative. I'm hoping that this can become something viable where down the road, like, you know, my ideal would be the end of the year to have 500 people. I think that's a little bit high, but at the same point, like, I think once people see the deals, you know, if you're into breaks, and even if you're not into breaks, that's one of the things too, is like, you don't have to be into breaks.
I immediately, as soon as I started looking at your site, like a month or two ago, like whenever you first told me about it, the first thing I did was go to singles because that's just what I'm looking at.
Yeah, and I'm trying, one of the nice things about the site is it allows me to make little collections to post. So like if you scroll down a little bit on the main page, you'll see like there's an AEW break. I set that up. I set the wrestling card section up. There's like a toys and collectibles section, and people have finally started posting in that too because it's mostly been cards. But trying to get people to tag stuff appropriately and all that, it's just it's a new thing. So getting people to come on and try a new app is never the easiest. But I appreciate everyone who's popped on there. We're already top 10 in terms of marketplaces on the at least the card side. We're top 10, and we're the top wrestling. There's only 2 wrestling ones, and I'm by far the top one on the app. And the hope is to just keep building it up, man.
That's great. Yeah, I know what you mean. So because I'm trying to build out the channel here, trying to build out my eBay store. You're doing that. I hope we're going to get that podcast off the ground. So because I've constantly said like there's in sports card world, there's all of these content creators out there, and there's a lot of them I like and a lot of them I hate. There's a lot of them that have differing opinions, and a lot of them I agree with, disagree with. So I like to listen to a lot of that stuff. And when I think about wrestling, there's just like a couple. There's not enough people putting themselves out there like what we've already talked about. So I hope you get that off the ground. Looking forward to that.
Thank you. Yeah, I see you. I see Card Foundation, and then like Squared Circle.
Yep, Squared Circle. Mm-hmm.
And that's pretty much the majority of what I know. I mean, we're I at least came up with the name of the pod, so we're going to try to figure it out. The No Schway Out podcast.
There you go. I love it.
So,
all right, let's do one more question here as we're kind of closing out from Alan. Let me go back up here and find it. Where did it go? Okay, this is I kind of lost it. Okay, this is like a it's a two-parter.
Yeah.
Well, it's like a one-parter, but it's 2 comments. Top 3 tenets to live by to keep the hobby healthy and happy. And I'll let you go first.
Well, I would say assume the best. I don't know. I assume like people, I was listening to your thing about personal collecting and how easy it is to offend people.
Oh yeah.
When it comes
how many people would we probably offend already on this discussion today? A ton, I'm sure.
Ton. Yeah, no, there's people who I'll talk to and it'll be like a $50 card and I offer 30, and you would think that I like stunnered their mother. How
yeah.
I would say like, don't assume, like even in myself, sometimes I try to catch myself just like, don't assume the worst. Try to assume people like, instead of being negative, how about counter offering? If it doesn't work out, that's fine, but there's nothing wrong with sending a counter. There's nothing wrong with just being honest. So I would say that Android, sure, my boy Piazza wants an Android app on the network. They still don't have that yet. So I would say that like, because as we've spoken on today, there's just tons of people who just choose negativity. I mean, social media is a very negative place. So trying not like that kind of goes in with trying not to take stuff personal. If people are giving you a low offer, don't take it personal. Just be like, hey, this is what I'm doing. I'm trying to think. I mean, I don't know. I just think if you come out of a place of being positive and trying not to, you're not trying to rip people off. You're not trying to run shady business. People can do what they can as far as price. If they can't meet your price, don't take it personal.
Yeah.
Just try to realize it's like everyone is selling cards and doing stuff for different means. Like, for example, my guy Piazza, he runs a great program on Whatnot. His goals for streaming are different than mine, though. Because he's a guy who loves the hobby. Like, if you're talking about one of the people in the hobby that's like the best, Zane, my guy Piazza, it's hard to beat, man. He's one of the best dudes I've met, just really going out of his way to help a lot of people. It's like seeing how he collects has made me like reevaluate how I collect and like how I support other people and stuff like that. Like, it doesn't take a lot to be supportive of other people in the same field. There's no reason for everyone to be rivals. Like I've reached out to people who consider me a rival, trying to like come together. Because to me, it's just, we're stronger together than apart. And just sometimes doing little tiny things to help, it could just mean a lot to someone else. Like my guy Winna, he met someone named Bad with Numbers through my Facebook group and through some of my like my whatnot streams and stuff. And Bad with Numbers found out Winna collects Angelico and just sent him an Angelico, I believe, auto to 25 for free.
Awesome.
Just because he was like, hey, I know it means a lot to you, blah, blah, blah. And now they're like best hobby friends. You know, so sometimes little tiny things can make like a huge difference and really like make people, you know, make someone's day. Like I helped my friend who's a JD McDonough collector get the 101 black and gold ringside from last year's select blaster breaks. And I maybe, you know, for putting it all together and stuff, because he's like, I want this card, but I don't want to spend it. And I went on eBay and then I hit up the guy and it turns out we were friends on Facebook and I negotiated a whole deal where my friend was able to get it for cheaper. And it's like, it didn't really help me at all, but it made all the world of difference to him. And to me, like knowing that I made, you know, I made his, you know, week or month or whatever for his PC, because it's probably the best JD card he has. And it's like, I didn't really need to do that, but that's why it meant more, was the fact that like, I know how much it means to him, you know, or like,
sure.
Yeah. To me, like, I think I put a higher value on community than like, sometimes I feel like I'm in the equivalent of Rocky 4. You seen Rocky 4?
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, Drago, when he's fighting Rocky at the end, and they're like, what are you doing? You're losing. And he's like, I fight for me. That's kind of like how I feel about life. Like, I collect for me. Or like people who say like, oh yeah, for the hobby. And like, that's kind of become a joke when we say for the hobby. To me, it's kind of a joke because I very rarely meet people who are like for the hobby. Like Zane, you seem like you're for the hobby, like legitimately. There's a
sort
lot
of. Yeah. I mean, there's like, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm going to tie what my response to that in with my answer to the three here. I'll let you keep going though.
I'm just going to say for me, like, I met you through Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
And we've like, this is the first time we've ever had a real conversation. And I still reached out to you to ask your opinion about, you know, getting a podcast started, blah, blah, blah. And I asked you and one other guy I know with the podcast. The other guy was like, oh, I'll get back to you tomorrow. You can tell where that went. And then
I think I said the same thing to you, and I do eventually get back. I'm just
no, but you got back. The other guy was like, because I find a lot of times like people like gatekeeping information to give themselves competitive advantages, perceived competitive advantages, you know, and
both within the hobby and with just life
in general. Oh yeah, dude, there's certain things like, you know, I would have even been on District earlier if, you know, I had to find the contact for it. I knew someone who had the contact. They didn't give it to me. So I had to go find it, you know, which to me, it's just one of those things where I'm like, bro, like we could literally be working together. Like we can be teammates. We don't have to be rivals. You know, there's enough out there where like, I sometimes jokingly say like the head of the whatnot table, but I'm just talking, you know what I mean? Like I literally just try to be entertaining and let people have like a good time and just talk shit. Like people talk shit to me, I'll do the same thing. Like nothing's that serious, but it's just
they're just having a good time. Like that's what this is. Why are we collecting anything and doing content or selling if we're not having a good time?
I mean, even before the network, dude, I had a Facebook group, I have a Discord. Like this has been something I've been trying to like, you know, having a community and centralizing people who like care about similar things as I do. There's a lot of stuff in this. Like, I'm not making money by having a Facebook group. I'm not making money really by having the network yet. You know, it's not really that big of a money driver right now. Like, if I do a break on whatnot, I'm going to make more money.
Sure.
It may take longer. The one nice thing about the network is I pre-sell the spots. I come on and I don't have to wait to fill. But for me, it's more so it's like, I like the community of people we have there. I see the upside. I think it could be great in the future. I think it's one of those things, once I get to 500 to 1,000 people, more people will start joining. People don't like being the first. You know, people like seeing something established and coming in. So we'll see what happens. But you can now answer whether or not you're for the. I was just saying the fact that you didn't gatekeep information. I appreciate.
Oh, no. Kind of my three things, and this will kind of be the way we close out. Is like I'm for the hobby, but I'm more so for the individuals. because I've collected stuff my whole life and not been part of communities that have been as fun and I'll use the word powerful as the wrestling card community. And I've had fun no matter what I've collecting. And I think too many people get caught up with trying to do this or this is the latest thing or I've been a proponent of not doing Whatnot breaks, not because I don't think they're valuable. We've obviously established today that people can make a good living doing it. You can form great communities doing it. But from a buying perspective, like I don't think I've ever bought anything off of there because it's just not kind of what my thing is. And I think that some people fall into the trap of doing what everybody else is doing, and it either gets them in financial trouble, which then takes them out of the hobby, or they lose interest because they can't focus on something as opposed to saying, I like this person, I like this set, I like this product, focusing in on that. So kind of, to keep the community or the hobby happy and healthy, focus on whatever it is you like to do. That'd be my number one thing. And collect. I know it's cliche to say collect what you like and what you want, but it really is the truth. Like, because if all of a sudden the community just dissolves today and I'm like the only person left collecting, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing because I'm enjoying doing it. I'm not trying to impress anybody. I'm not trying to live up to anybody's expectations. So that's the first thing. The second thing is going to tie into the selling. And that is from a selling perspective. Like if it's not something that you're like, if you don't PC it, if it's not like your coffin card, so to speak, and you run into somebody that either super collects, somebody somebody you want to, we've talked a lot about helping out community members. Just figure out what your margins are on it. Sometimes it's okay to take a loss on things if you're going to help somebody out by either buying their inventory because they need to, pay for something, or hooking up that collector with that card that you have at cost or lower, or maybe a little bit more, because you know that they're going to appreciate it more than just some random person on eBay kind of thing. So just kind of, understanding that you don't always have to squeeze every penny out of every single thing to keep the flow going. Well, and the last thing is support. You mentioned constant support. This channel, your network, Card Foundation podcast, doesn't matter what it is. Like we all got to help support each other and keep lifting up wrestling cards, because if we don't, and I'm just saying as a whole, because if we're not building the floor level of wrestling cards to begin with, it's not going to continue to go up. If we're just like this closeted community where we don't help others and don't reach out to people and build this thing, like the level of wrestling card collectors out there, it may not reach that upper echelon to where we are seeing the Randy Ortons or the Batistas start getting more popular and valuable because people actually want to collect those things now. So that's kind of my three.
Yeah, I would say real quick, off of what you're saying, I think a lot of people don't realize how hard it is really to just, even outside of all the work that goes into making this, video and your pod and all that, is just, for me at least, it's really hard putting myself out there, to be open for like critique and judgment and like, lies or whatever. Like people can literally say anything by putting yourself out there.
Yeah, you can go back on any of the videos on my channel and check out some of the comments that are pretty hateful or, critiquing. And I'm just like, I don't care, whatever.
Yeah. So it's like that. And then also I would say, I think I agree with some of your points about breaks and whatnot. I will say though, is that, whatnot can get addictive just because you're there and it's a swipe.
Wait a minute. Stop. Me and you had a disagreement on something. We got to end the stream right now. We can't talk anymore.
Oh, there you go. I was just going to say, man, there's a lot of like outside of breaks, there's a lot of great single streams and a lot of streams where you can just buy specific cards you're looking for. Like you don't have, like Whatnot's just not only breaks. There's breaks.
You could join a community, buy nothing, and just hang out.
I mean, dude, there's people who come in my streams every time who like barely, like, if ever, buy anything. And part of me is I'm like, I've hit him up. I'm like, bro, like, I feel like throw me a tip, my guy. I'm giving you I'm a lot cheaper than Netflix, and I've been giving you a lot of free entertainment, because I'm like, I'm on Whatnot before grad school. Like I used to be streaming like 40 to 60 hours a week type shit. You know what I mean?
Full-time job.
It's a full-on job. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things where it's like, as much as I like doing it, like at the end of the day too, like, I am trying to figure out how to do this full time so I can, or something along these paths so that I can like actually support myself, because I like doing this type of stuff. It's just Whatnot's become a much more of a grind now that there's so many more sellers and stuff like that. I'm not worried about my position at all, but it's just one of those things where it's like, it's not as easy as it used to be to just hop on and get shit done anymore. You know?
Well, anything else you want to let everybody know about? If you guys have any last minute questions or comments in the chat, let us know. But kind of the floor is yours. One last pitch to kind of get everybody onto the Schway Wrestling Network.
I mean, guys, like, you know, to me, it's a no-brainer. No one else is really doing anything like this right now. Obviously, I'm biased, but you come on, you can sell stuff. It's cheaper than eBay and whatnot. It embeds very easily on Instagram and Twitter if you want to share it, where people can actually claim stuff in your comments, which is very cool. It will send them a cart to their DMs where they can purchase the card, and the card will be held for them for an hour while they figure out if they want it or not. So there's a lot of upside to it for me, and especially if you get into breaks, like I said, Undertaker went for $5. Asuka went for $1 in the last break. So if you're taking a chance on breaks, like, why not take a lower risk one? You know what I mean? Because some of these guys like Undertaker, you know, for example, you know, I saw a blaster break of AEW yesterday, and like, you know, Jade was like $45 or something, right? I did a 10-box blaster break, and she sold for like $8, like a half case, excuse me. So it's like, you know, $8, you amortize that across, that's $16 for a whole case, and they're charging $45 on whatnot. So for me, it's one of those things where it's like, I'm trying to sell people on the deals, I'm trying to sell people on the community, and I'm trying to sell people on the fact that this is a place for you to sell your cards to without just randomly throwing them into the abyss, you know. And anything that gets posted on there, like, I try to share on my social media, or if it relates to one of my customers, I'll try to share it with them as a way to get you more sales, you know. So if you guys are in it already, I appreciate you. If not, definitely follow me on Schway Nostalgia on all platforms. Make sure to do it. Also, one of the nice things about that too, which actually could be a tool for you, Zane, is you can do a lot of the stuff StreamYard does on there, but for free. So when I'm streaming on there, I'm streaming on District, I'm streaming on YouTube, I'm streaming on Twitch, I'm streaming in my Facebook group, and I'm streaming on Twitter, all at the same time.
Awesome.
So there's 5 different platforms where you can watch me on all of those. And the hope is to monetize Twitch and YouTube eventually, so I could get paid off of just getting streams, which, you know, it's definitely helping build multiple platforms at once versus whatnot, which doesn't really do that as well.
Right. Well, thanks everybody for stopping by in the chat today. We had so many great questions that we actually didn't even get started talking about the network until like an hour into this. This has probably been the longest show I've ever done. We're closing in on almost 2 hours. So
I do talk a lot. I'm sorry about that.
No, that's what this is all about, is having discussions and answering community, hanging out, answering questions, and just having a good time. So we'll close it out with one last thing. Where's that Android app?
Yeah, dude, I've been bugging them to get the Android app popping. We need to have the Android app. For a lot of people I know don't have the app because they're like, once you have Android, and I'm like, man, you can do it on the computer. But I feel you guys, something about
that's what I've been perusing the network just on a browser, either on my phone, but mostly on the computer. But I'm on you know, some of us are on computers more than phones. So
I got to put you on the spot, Zane. What do we got to do to get you in the network today, brother? What do I got to do to convert you into a believer, Zane?
Oh, I've been meaning to sign up for ages. But you know what? You know what? When I told you the other day, I was like, yeah, I'm going to get you a thumbnail sent so we can promote the show. It was like a day or two later, I feel like, before I got back with you. And it's just because like I get this laundry list of things I've got to do, and between the eBay store and trying to get content, and I still work a regular job and doing like family obligations and stuff. I'm just like, oh, well, I forgot.
Yeah, no, dude, I totally get it, bro. There's so much stuff that like I said, even just starting this podcast has been something I've been talking to people about, like even before wrestling. Like I wanted to do one for music and stuff. So it's been a multi-year thing that I just like, you know, having that belief in yourself to do stuff, sometimes psyching yourself up to do something. Because once whatnot, I would have been on months earlier and I didn't do it just because I was like, who wants to listen to me? And then I started doing it. And next thing you know, I was like, oh, okay.
Open the floodgates of possibilities going forward.
Yeah, you got to be like, what? It's super random. I'll leave you with this. There's this woman named Brene Brown. You ever heard of her?
Mm-mm.
She's like a self-help type person. And one of the things that she said is like, you know, if you've ever had like a relationship with someone that went south or a situation that went south, you know, there's this inherent thing where you're just like, why me? Why me? You know, like that type of thing, kind of that victim mentality. And I've been trying to change why me into what's next.
Yeah,
You know,
definitely.
it's just why harp on stuff I can't control, bad stuff that's happened, blah, blah, blah. It's like, all right, this happened. What's next? What are we doing next? How are we growing? How are we getting past this? What are we doing? Instead of just focusing on the negative. So guys, always just think, what's next? Don't get caught up on what happened. It already happened. There's not much you can do about it at this point.
What's next for the Schway Wrestling Network? I don't know. You'll have to click the link in the show notes.
Zane's next. After Zane, though, it could be you, chat. So definitely come check it out. Try to get us to 300 by the end of the month, and maybe I'll do a givey or something.
There you go. And what's next for this live stream? I don't know. We'll do next week. We'll come back with another live episode. Once again, thanks everybody for stopping by. Schway Nostalgia, thank you for doing what you're doing with the network. Thank you for fighting the good fight, forming a community, and coming on the show today. Because you know, giving anybody 2 hours of their time is pretty. It's pretty nice, and hopefully it helped out everybody. So thank you guys for watching.